Unexpected rescue. The January rain hadn't stopped for 3 days in Portland. Olivia Reed pulled her thin jacket tighter around her shoulders as she trudged up the muddy hiking trail. Most people would call her crazy for hiking in this weather, but the Douglas fir forest had always been her thinking sanctuary, and right now she needed clarity more than comfort. At 32, Olivia's architecture career wasn't where she'd imagined it would be. Her portfolio was impressive, sustainable designs that had won minor awards, but the prestigious firms kept rejecting her applications. Today's rejection from Carver Associates had been particularly crushing, their polite email suggesting her vision might be too innovative for their client base. Too innovative, she muttered, kicking a pine cone off the increasingly slippery path. Just say you want something safe and boring. The rain intensified, drumming against the forest canopy. Olivia checked her watch and decided to turn back. The trail had become treacherous, water coursing down the hillside in small rivulets. She'd nearly reached the switchback when she heard it, a deep, rumbling sound that seemed to come from within the earth itself. Before she could process what was happening, the ground beneath her right foot gave way. Mud and rock slid downward, taking her with them. Olivia screamed, her fingers clawing desperately at roots and rocks as she slid toward the edge of a steep embankment. Everything moved in terrifying slow motion, her backpack catching briefly on a branch, her hiking boot filling with mud, her phone tumbling from her pocket into the churning debris. Hold on. A voice cut through the roar of the landslide. Through the curtain of rain, Olivia glimpsed a tall figure scrambling toward her, moving with surprising agility across the unstable terrain. Her hands were losing their grip on the slippery root. She'd managed to grab. "I can't," she gasped as her fingers slipped. In that moment of free fall, Olivia was certain this was how she would die, broken on the rocks 40 feet below. Instead, strong fingers wrapped around her wrist, halting her descent with a painful jerk. She looked up into the most intensely focused brown eyes she'd ever seen, set in a face streaked with mud but determined. "I've got you," the man said, his voice steady despite the obvious strain of holding her weight. "Can you get your foot on that ledge to your right?" Olivia managed to find purchase, relieving some of the pressure on her arm. With incredible strength, the stranger pulled her upward until she could grasp the edge of solid ground. Together, they scrambled away from the crumbling hillside, not stopping until they reached a small clearing sheltered by thick trees. "Are you hurt?" he asked, his breathing heavy. Olivia took stock, scraped palms, a twisted ankle, and what would become spectacular bruises but nothing broken. "I'm alive thanks to you." Her voice trembled. "You could have been killed trying to save me." He smiled, rainwater dripping from his dark hair. "I'm an experienced climber. Calculated risk." He shrugged off his waterproof jacket and draped it over her shoulders. "You're shivering, but now you'll get soaked," she protested. "I've got layers." He was already pulling a compact emergency blanket from his backpack. "I'm Daniel, by the way." "Olivia," she replied, suddenly aware of how bedraggled she must look. "Olivia Reed." Daniel nodded, seemingly satisfied that she wasn't critically injured. "We need to get down before more of the hillside goes. Can you walk?" Olivia tested her ankle. It hurt, but would hold her weight. "I think so." The descent was slow and painful. Daniel stayed close, his hand occasionally steadying her elbow at treacherous points. As they emerged from the forest into the parking area, the rain finally began to ease. "My car's the blue Subaru," Olivia said, fumbling for keys in her muddy pocket. Daniel frowned. "You shouldn't drive with that ankle. Let me call you a rideshare." "I can't afford," Olivia began, then bit her lip. Her financial situation wasn't the stranger's concern. Something in Daniel's expression shifted. Without judgment, he said, "Then I'll drive you home. I can take a rideshare back for my car later." By the time they reached her small apartment, Olivia's ankle had swollen considerably. Daniel insisted on helping her inside, making an ice pack and ensuring she had everything she needed before reluctantly preparing to leave. "I never properly thanked you," Olivia said, realizing she'd never even see his full face clearly through all the mud and rain. "No thanks needed." He wrote something on a scrap of paper. "Here's my number in case you need anything. Please see a doctor about that ankle." Before she could respond, he was gone, leaving only muddy footprints and his handwritten number as evidence he'd been there at all. Olivia stared at the closed door, clutching his note, wondering about the stranger who had saved her life and whether their paths would ever cross again. New beginnings. 3 weeks after the landslide incident, Olivia's ankle had mostly healed, though occasional twinges reminded her how close she'd come to disaster. The number Daniel had left remained on her refrigerator, held by a magnet shaped like Oregon. She'd almost called it twice, once to return his jacket, which still hung on her coat rack, and once just to properly thank him, but something always held her back. What would she say to the stranger who'd saved her life then disappeared? Today, Olivia had more pressing concerns. She stood before the imposing glass headquarters of Horizon Designs, the most innovative architectural firm in the Pacific Northwest. Their sudden interest in her portfolio had been unexpected. A LinkedIn message from their HR department requesting an interview had arrived just days after the landslide. "You can do this," she whispered, smoothing her charcoal pencil skirt and adjusting the portfolio case under her arm. The lobby was a testament to brilliant design. Soaring ceilings with suspended wooden beams that created the impression of walking through a modernist forest. Natural light poured through strategically placed skylights, illuminating living walls of native ferns and moss. "Ms. Reed?" A professional-looking woman with a sleek bob approached. "I'm Prisha Kapoor, HR Director. Welcome to Horizon." Prisha led her through the building, explaining Horizon's philosophy of blending innovation with environmental responsibility. "We believe architecture should honor the natural world, not conquer it," she explained, showing Olivia a model of their award-winning butterfly sanctuary. "Your designs seem aligned with our vision." The interview room overlooked the Willamette River. Olivia tried to calm her nerves as 3 senior architects entered, introducing themselves as the design team leads. They were impressed with her portfolio, particularly her concept for a floating community center that could adapt to rising water levels. "This is precisely the forward-thinking we need," said Amelia Vasquez, the Urban Development Director. "Tell us about your inspiration." For the next hour, Olivia felt truly heard for the first time in her career. These people understood her vision of architecture as a solution to environmental challenges, not just aesthetic structures. When the interview concluded, Prisha returned with promising news. "The team is very impressed. The final step would be meeting with our founder and CEO, Jonathan Pierce. He personally approves all design team hires." Prisha checked her tablet. "Would tomorrow at 10 a.m. work for you?" Olivia nodded, trying to contain her excitement. Absolutely. That evening, Olivia researched everything she could find about Jonathan Pierce. The articles painted him as something of an enigma, brilliant, but intensely private. After founding Horizon Designs 12 years ago, he'd transformed it from a small startup into an architectural powerhouse known for sustainable innovation. Despite his company's high profile, Pierce himself rarely appeared in photos or gave interviews. One article mentioned his background in both architecture and environmental engineering, with mountaineering listed among his hobbies. "Takes calculated risks in business and life," the profile noted. Something about that phrase tickled Olivia's memory, but she couldn't place it. As she prepared for bed, her phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. "Ms. Reed, this is Prisha, from Horizon. Mr. Pierce has requested you bring your landslide-resistant housing concept sketches tomorrow if available. He saw them mentioned in your portfolio." Olivia froze. Those sketches were preliminary ideas she'd barely referenced. Concepts for homes that could withstand soil displacement in areas prone to landslides. She'd started them years ago but had renewed her interest after her recent experience. How had Pierce even noticed that tiny mention? She dug through her flat files until she found the rough sketches, staying up half the night refining them into presentable concepts. Morning arrived too quickly. Clutching her expanded portfolio and a very large coffee, Olivia returned to Horizon Designs. The receptionist directed her to the top floor, where Prisha waited by the elevator. Mr. Pierce is eager to meet you, she said, leading Olivia down a hallway lined with architectural models of Horizon's most celebrated projects. They stopped before a door made of reclaimed timber, its surface beautifully grained. Just be yourself, Prisha advised before knocking and opening the door. The office beyond was unexpected, not the stark, minimalist space Olivia had imagined, but a warm room with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the Cascade Mountains. One wall displayed topographical maps. Another held climbing equipment and photographs of mountain ranges from around the world. Ms. Reed has arrived, Prisha announced to the man standing with his back to them, examining a large architectural model. Thank you, Prisha, he replied, his voice striking a chord of familiarity in Olivia's mind. As he turned, Olivia's portfolio nearly slipped from her suddenly numb fingers. Though clean-shaven and impeccably dressed in a tailored suit rather than mud-covered hiking gear, there was no mistaking those intense brown eyes. Daniel, or rather Jonathan Pierce, looked equally startled for a fraction of a second before composure settled over his features. A small smile played at the corner of his mouth. Ms. Reed, he said, extending his hand. I believe we have a lot to discuss. Prisha, noticing nothing amiss, quietly excused herself and closed the door behind her, leaving Olivia standing before the man who'd saved her life. The man who now held her professional future in his hands. Olivia managed, her prepared interview responses evaporating. Jonathan Pierce, he confirmed, his handshake firm. Though you knew me briefly as Daniel, please have a seat. Olivia sank into the offered chair, mind racing. Had he known who she was that day on the mountain? Had her interview been arranged because of their encounter? The implications made her stomach twist. I imagine you have questions, Jonathan said, taking the seat across from her rather than behind his imposing desk. I'd be happy to answer them before we discuss your potential role at Horizon. Revelation. Did you know who I was? The question burst from Olivia before she could frame it more professionally. That day on the trail, was this all some elaborate setup? Jonathan's expression shifted to one of genuine surprise. No, nothing like that. Our meeting was pure coincidence. He leaned forward slightly. I hike that trail often when I need to clear my head. I had no idea who you were until I saw your resume come across my desk a week later. And you recognized my name, Olivia said, still processing. I did. He nodded. I considered recusing myself from the hiring process, but your portfolio was exceptional. The team had already selected you as a top candidate before I made the connection. Olivia studied him, searching for any sign of deception. Finding none, she asked, Then why use a different name that day? Jonathan ran a hand through his dark hair, a gesture that made him seem more like the hiker who'd pulled her to safety than the CEO of a major firm. I value my privacy. When I'm on the trails, I'm just another hiker. Daniel is my middle name. I use it occasionally when I don't want to be Jonathan Pierce, CEO. The explanation was reasonable, but Olivia still felt off balance. And my landslide-resistant housing concepts, why the specific interest? A genuine smile crossed his face. That was actually what convinced me our meeting wasn't just coincidence. After experiencing that landslide firsthand, I've been thinking about architectural solutions for homes in similar terrain. Then I see a brief mention of exactly that concept in your portfolio. It seemed serendipitous. Olivia opened her portfolio case and withdrew the sketches she'd refined overnight. They're still preliminary, she cautioned, spreading them on the coffee table between them. Jonathan leaned in, his focus immediately professional as he examined her work. For 20 minutes, they discussed soil displacement mitigation, flexible foundation systems, and terrain adaptive structures. Olivia found herself relaxing as the conversation turned technical, her passion for the subject overriding her initial discomfort. These are impressive, he said, finally sitting back. Your approach to the anchoring system is particularly innovative. Thank you, Olivia replied, feeling on firmer ground. But I'm still concerned about the circumstances. If you hire me, People might think that you didn't earn it, Jonathan finished. I understand that concern, which is why I want to be completely transparent about the process. He retrieved a folder from his desk. These are the evaluation scores from the design team. They selected you before I was involved. Your final interview. Today is standard procedure. I meet with all potential design team members. He handed her the folder. Inside were detailed assessments of her portfolio, interview notes from yesterday, and comparative rankings placing her at the top of 5 candidates. Oh, was all Olivia could manage. I value talent and innovation, Ms. Reed. Your work speaks for itself. Jonathan's tone became more formal. Now shall we proceed with the actual interview? I have several questions about your approach to sustainable urban housing. For the next hour, they engaged in a rigorous discussion of architectural philosophy, technical challenges, and Olivia's vision for her career. Jonathan proved to be both knowledgeable and challenging, pushing her to defend her ideas while offering insightful perspectives of his own. As their conversation wound down, Jonathan stood and walked to the window. There's one more thing we should address, he said, gazing out at the mountains. The power dynamic. Olivia tensed. What do you mean? He turned back to face her. If you join Horizon, I would be your employer. Given our unusual first meeting, I want to establish clear boundaries. You would report to Emilia Vasquez, not directly to me. Your performance reviews would be conducted by the design team committee, and I would recuse myself from decisions specifically regarding your advancement. That's thoughtful, Olivia said, surprised by his foresight. I've built this company on principles of integrity and mutual respect, Jonathan replied. I wouldn't want our chance encounter to compromise either. Olivia considered his words. The position at Horizon represented everything she'd worked toward: challenging projects, like-minded colleagues, the chance to create meaningful architecture. Should she let an unexpected connection to its founder derail this opportunity? I appreciate your transparency, she said finally, and I would welcome the opportunity to join Horizon with those professional boundaries in place. Jonathan nodded, satisfied. Then I'm pleased to officially offer you the position of project architect on our design team. He extended his hand. Welcome to Horizon, Ms. Reed. As they shook hands, Olivia felt the strange sensation of a chapter closing and another beginning. Thank you, Mr. Pierce. Jonathan, please, we don't stand on ceremony here. He smiled. Prisha will help you with the paperwork. Your first day would be Monday, if that works for you. As Olivia gathered her portfolio, a question nagged at her. Your jacket, she said suddenly. I still have it. Keep it, he replied. Consider it a welcome gift. Outside Jonathan's office, Prisha waited with evident curiosity. How did it go? She asked as they walked toward HR. Well, I think, Olivia replied, still processing the surreal turn of events. He offered me the position. Prisha beamed. Congratulations. Jonathan rarely makes offers on the spot. Your work must have truly impressed him. If only you knew, Olivia thought. Later that evening, as she stood on her small balcony watching the sunset paint the city in gold, Olivia wondered what she'd gotten herself into. The man who had pulled her from the edge of disaster was now her boss. The jacket he'd given her still hung inside, a reminder of their strange connection. Her phone chimed with a text from an unknown number. Congratulations again on joining the team. Looking forward to seeing your contributions. JP. Olivia stared at the message, uncertain how to respond or what this new chapter would bring. One thing was clear. Her life had changed course as dramatically as that day on the landslide, and she was once again holding on for the ride. Growing connection. Olivia's first month at Horizon Designs passed in a blur of introductions, project briefings, and adjusting to the collaborative atmosphere that permeated the firm. True to his word, Jonathan maintained a professional distance, their interactions limited to team meetings and occasional passing conversations in the common areas. Emilia Vasquez proved to be both a demanding supervisor and generous mentor, assigning Olivia to the Portland Riverfront Renewal Project, a prestigious undertaking to transform an industrial waterfront into a flood-resistant green space with mixed-use buildings. "We chose you specifically for this," Emilia explained during their third week. "Your understanding of water-adaptive structures is exactly what we need." Olivia thrived under the challenge, staying late most evenings to refine her designs. It was during one such night, the office nearly empty, when Jonathan found her surrounded by sketches and 3D renderings. "You've made yourself at home," he observed, pausing at her workstation. Olivia looked up, startled. Jonathan wore casual clothes, jeans and a simple button-down with rolled sleeves, a stark contrast to his usual tailored suits. "The riverfront project has consumed me," she admitted. "Water patterns are fascinating but unpredictable." He nodded toward her computer screen. "May I?" She shifted aside as he leaned in to examine her work, a modular foundation system that could adjust to changing water levels. His proximity sent an unexpected flutter through her chest, which she firmly ignored. "You've considered seasonal variations," he asked, pointing to her calculations. "And 50-year projections for climate change impacts," she confirmed. "The structure needs to withstand both gradual shifts and sudden surges." Jonathan's expression grew thoughtful. "Like landslides, unexpected yet increasingly predictable with the right data." The parallel hung between them, unspoken but acknowledged. "Exactly," Olivia said softly. "We can't prevent natural forces, but we can design with them rather than against them." Jonathan straightened, a new respect in his eyes. "That philosophy is precisely why you belong at Horizon." He glanced at his watch. "It's nearly 9. Have you eaten?" The question caught her off guard. "I had a protein bar around 4, she admitted. "That hardly counts. There's a team dinner at Riverbend Restaurant, informal gathering for the Riverfront project. Would you join us? Several people are already there." The invitation seemed innocent enough with others present. "I'll just save these files and wrap up." 20 minutes later, they walked the 6 blocks to Riverbend, their conversation flowing easily from architecture to Portland's changing cityscape. Jonathan proved knowledgeable about local history, pointing out buildings with unusual design elements she'd never noticed. "How long have you lived in Portland?" she asked. "Born and raised, though I left for college and worked in Singapore for several years before returning to start Horizon." His expression turned wistful. "The city's changed, but the mountains remain constant." "They're what drew me here," Olivia confessed. "I grew up in Nebraska, flat horizons everywhere. The first time I saw Mount Hood, I knew I'd found home." They arrived at Riverbend to find a lively table of colleagues already sharing appetizers and stories. If anyone found it noteworthy that the CEO and newest hire arrived together, they didn't show it. The evening unfolded pleasantly, with conversations about architecture interspersed with personal anecdotes and good-natured teasing. As the group dispersed around 11, Olivia discovered her apartment was in the same direction as Jonathan's loft. They fell into step together, the spring night cool but pleasant. "Thank you for including me," she said. "It's been hard moving to a new city without knowing many people." Jonathan nodded. "The isolation can be challenging. When I returned from Singapore, most of my college friends had scattered. I found myself spending more time on hiking trails than with people." "Hence your fortuitous presence during my landslide," Olivia said, attempting lightness. He smiled. "Universe works in strange ways." They reached the intersection where their paths would diverge. "Do you hike much?" "Before your accident, I mean." "I was just starting to explore the trails. I haven't been back since, well, you know." Jonathan studied her. "The fear can become paralyzing if you don't confront it. The Trillium Lake Trail is beautiful this time of year. Gentle terrain, spectacular mountain views, no landslide risk." "Are you suggesting—" "A group of us from the office hike most Saturdays," he said quickly. "Very casual, all skill levels. You'd be welcome to join." The invitation seemed genuine, and Olivia found herself nodding. "I'd like that." Saturday dawned clear and perfect for hiking. Olivia met the group: Jonathan, Prisha, 2 designers named Warren and Talia, and a structural engineer called Rodrigo, at the trailhead. To her relief, everyone was friendly and the pace leisurely. As they hiked, the group naturally shifted and regrouped. During one stretch, Olivia found herself walking alongside Jonathan. "Holding up okay?" he asked, noticing her occasional glances at the surrounding slopes. "Better than expected," she admitted. "Beautiful trails are worth facing a little fear for." He smiled. "Most worthwhile things require some courage." Over the following weeks, a pattern emerged. Olivia excelled at her projects, earning Amelia's approval and her colleagues' respect. She joined the weekend hiking group regularly, gradually rediscovering her love for the outdoors. And increasingly, she found herself in Jonathan's orbit, discussing design challenges over coffee, debating architectural theories during lunch breaks, sharing trail recommendations. Their professional relationship remained appropriate, but Olivia couldn't deny the growing warmth between them. Jonathan was unlike any man she'd known, brilliant yet humble, ambitious yet ethical, intense yet considerate. She found herself looking forward to their encounters, however brief. The change in their dynamic became evident during a critical client presentation for the Riverfront project. Olivia's innovative flood mitigation system was central to the proposal, but presenting to city officials and developers left her uncharacteristically nervous. Midway through her explanation, a skeptical council member interrupted with pointed questions about cost and practicality. Olivia faltered momentarily, her confidence wavering. From his position at the back of the room, Jonathan caught her eye and nodded slightly, a silent vote of confidence. Drawing strength from his belief, in her work Olivia regained her footing, addressing the concerns with clarity and conviction. By presentation's end, even the skeptical council member appeared impressed. "That was masterfully handled," Jonathan told her afterward, the pride in his voice unmistakable. "I almost lost them in the middle," Olivia confessed. "But you didn't. You found your voice again." His hand briefly touched her shoulder. "That's what makes a great architect. Not just brilliant designs, but the ability to champion them effectively." The simple touch lingered in her awareness long after he'd withdrawn his hand. That evening, as Olivia worked late finalizing revisions requested by the clients, a text arrived from Jonathan. "Trillium Lake at sunrise tomorrow, before the Saturday group. The light on Mount Hood is spectacular." Olivia stared at her phone, recognizing the shift this represented. From group activity to personal invitation, her fingers hovered over the keyboard as she considered the implications. Was this still professional? Was she reading too much into a simple hiking invitation? After several minutes of deliberation, she replied, "What time?" His response came immediately. 5:30 a.m. at the trailhead. Bring coffee, I'll bring breakfast." As Olivia set her alarm, she couldn't ignore the flutter of anticipation in her chest. Something was changing between them, something that transcended their chance, meeting in a landslide or their professional relationship. Whether this sunrise hike would clarify or complicate matters remained to be seen, but Olivia found herself willing to take the risk to find out. Leap of faith. The world looked different in pre-dawn light, all soft edges and muted colors. Olivia pulled into the trailhead parking lot at 5:25 a.m., spotting Jonathan's Jeep already waiting. He stood leaning against the hood, 2 travel mugs in hand, his breath forming small clouds in the cool morning air. "You made it," he said, smiling as she approached. "I thought you might reconsider the ungodly hour and miss the spectacular light on Mount Hood you promised." She accepted the offered mug. "What happened to 'I bring breakfast, you bring coffee'?" Jonathan hefted a small backpack. "Breakfast is packed, but I figured extra coffee wouldn't hurt." They set off in comfortable silence, the trail illuminated by their headlamps. As they hiked, the sky gradually lightened, first to deep blue, then to the pale lavender of approaching dawn. The forest around them stirred with early birdsong. "Just around this bend," Jonathan said eventually, leading her off the main trail onto a smaller path. They emerged onto a rocky outcropping overlooking Trillium Lake. The still water perfectly mirrored Mount Hood, whose peak was just catching the first golden rays of sunrise. The sight stole Olivia's breath. "Worth the early wake-up call?" Jonathan asked softly. Absolutely worth it, she whispered, transfixed by the mountain's transformation as sunlight gradually painted its snowy slopes in rose gold. They sat on a fallen log, sharing the breakfast Jonathan had packed, warm croissants, fruit, and cheese. Neither spoke much, content to watch nature's light show unfold before them. I come here when I need perspective, Jonathan said finally. Reminds me how small our human concerns are compared to mountains that have stood for millennia. Olivia nodded. Yet we keep trying to build things that will last, knowing they're temporary in the grand scheme. That's what I admire about your designs, he said, turning to face her. You don't fight against impermanence, you accommodate it, work with it. The intensity in his gaze made Olivia acutely aware of how close they sat, shoulders nearly touching. Jonathan, she began, uncertain what she wanted to say but feeling the need to acknowledge the shifting dynamic between them. This past month at Horizon has been incredible, but I'm concerned about the boundaries we established, he finished when she trailed off. Yes, are we crossing them right now? He considered her question seriously. Professionally, you've exceeded every expectation without any favoritism. Your team respects you for your talent, not your connection to me. He set his coffee aside. But personally, yes, I think we're approaching a boundary. The honesty was refreshing. What do we do about that? That depends, Jonathan said carefully, on whether you want to explore what might exist beyond that boundary. The moment stretched between them, fragile and charged with possibility. In his eyes, Olivia saw the same steady certainty that had been there when he'd pulled her from the landslide. A man willing to take calculated risks for something he believed worthwhile. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't drawn to you, Olivia admitted. But I've worked too hard to be taken seriously as an architect to be seen as the woman who's involved with the boss. Jonathan nodded slowly. I understand that concern. I've built Horizon on integrity and merit. The last thing I want is to compromise that culture, or your standing within it. He looked out at the mountain, now fully illuminated in morning light. Which is why I wanted to have this conversation away from the office in neutral territory. What are you suggesting? Options, he replied. We could maintain a strictly professional relationship, which would be the simplest solution. Or, he hesitated, I could recuse myself from oversight of the design division entirely, transferring authority to our board and department heads. That structural change has been in discussion for months anyway, as we've grown. Olivia studied him, surprised by the thoroughness with which he'd considered the situation. You'd reorganize your company? For the right reasons, yes. His expression was earnest. Horizon is more than just me now. It has been for some time. A third option hung unspoken between them, that Olivia could leave Horizon for another firm. But she knew Jonathan would never suggest it, understanding what the position meant to her career. What about a fourth option? Olivia suggested. We take things slowly. See if whatever this is between us is even worth restructuring a company. For a smile tugged at his lips. Practical as always. I like that approach. The sun had fully risen now, burning away the morning mist from the lake. Other hikers would soon arrive, breaking their solitude. We should head back, Olivia said, gathering. Their breakfast remains. Jonathan stood, offering his hand to help her up. The simple gesture felt different now, a choice rather than mere courtesy. Olivia took his hand, allowing the contact to linger longer than necessary. They hiked back mostly in silence, occasionally pointing out wildflowers or interesting rock formations. At the trailhead, they paused beside their cars. The Saturday group hike is in 2 hours, Jonathan said. Will you join us? I think I'll skip today, process some things. She smiled to soften her words. He nodded, understanding. Olivia, whatever you decide about us, your position at Horizon is secure. I want you to know that. Thank you. She hesitated, then added, I don't regret meeting you on that trail, you know, even with all the complications. Nor do I. His expression softened. Some risks are worth taking. As she drove home, Olivia found herself replaying their conversation, weighing professional concerns against personal feelings. By Monday morning, she'd made her decision. She arrived at the office early, finding Jonathan already at work in the conference room, reviewing project timelines. "Do you have a moment?" she asked from the doorway. He looked up, his expression carefully neutral. "Of course." Olivia closed the door behind her and took a seat across from him. "I've been thinking about our conversation. And I believe in approaching challenges methodically, testing assumptions before committing to major changes." She met his gaze directly. "I'd like to have dinner with you, outside of work. Just the two of us." The smile that spread across his face was worth the sleepless night she'd spent deliberating. "I'd like that very much. But," she continued, "no company restructuring. Not yet. Let's see where this goes naturally. What about the professional boundaries? We maintain them at work, completely. And we're transparent with HR about a personal relationship if that's where this leads." Olivia had researched Horizon's policies extensively. "Your company handbook actually has quite progressive guidelines for handling potential conflicts of interest." Jonathan laughed. "You've done your homework. I'm an architect. I like solid foundations. Fair enough." He leaned back in his chair. "When would you like to have this dinner?" "Friday? That gives us a full work week of maintaining normal professional interaction. I know just the place." His eyes held hers. "Thank you for being willing to take a chance." "Well," she said with a small smile, "someone once saved me from a landslide by taking a calculated risk. Seems I might have learned something from his example." As Olivia left the conference room to start her workday, she felt a curious sense of rightness. 6 weeks ago, she'd been sliding toward disaster, literally and figuratively. Career stalled, future uncertain. Now she stood on solid ground professionally, with the possibility of something meaningful personally as well. That Friday evening, Olivia found herself on the rooftop garden of a small restaurant overlooking the city, sharing stories and dreams with Jonathan long after their meal was finished. Their conversation flowed effortlessly from architecture to childhood memories, from travel aspirations to favorite books. As the evening wound down, Jonathan walked her to her car. Under the soft glow of street lamps, he reached for her hand. "I've been thinking about something you said during your riverfront presentation," he told her. "The most resilient structures are those that can adapt to change, rather than resist it." Olivia smiled, recognizing her own words. "Are you applying architectural philosophy to relationships now?" "Perhaps." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "But it's a sound principle in any context, don't you think? Adaptation rather than resistance. As long as the foundation is solid," she replied, meeting his gaze. In answer, Jonathan leaned forward slowly, giving her time to step back if she wished. Instead, Olivia closed the distance between them, their lips meeting in a kiss that felt like both an ending and a beginning. When they separated, Jonathan's expression was tender. "Solid enough?" Olivia laughed softly. "A promising start. But you know what architects always say, the true test is how it weathers over time," he finished. "Exactly." As she drove home that night, Olivia thought about the strange series of events that had brought them together, a landslide that could have ended her life, instead becoming the catalyst for a new beginning. Sometimes, she reflected, the ground had to shift beneath your feet before you could find your true path. 6 months later, Olivia stood on the observation platform of the newly completed first phase of the Portland Riverfront Renewal Project, her design brought to life in steel, glass, and sustainable materials. Beside her, Jonathan watched with pride as city officials cut the ribbon. "Your vision," he whispered, his hand finding hers discreetly. "Our company," she replied, squeezing his fingers. The structure stood resilient at the river's edge, designed to rise and fall with the water's natural rhythms rather than fighting against them. Like the relationship they had carefully built, professional boundaries respected at work, personal connection deepening outside the office. It represented a balance between strength and flexibility, Neither of them knew what challenges the future might bring, but they had both learned that sometimes the most beautiful structures arose from unexpected foundations. All it took was the courage to take that first leap of faith, and the wisdom to build something that could adapt to whatever changes came their way.